All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Los Angeles County Pride Society, aka LACOPS Pride Trailblazer Zoom series. And I'm here. I'm Sergeant Jules Sohn. I am with the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm the president of the LACOPS Pride organization, nonprofit. We're the official affinity group for the Los Angeles Police Department. And I'm here with my partner, the vice president of LACOPS Pride, Sergeant Keith Ho, and he's from the LA Sheriff's Department. And we're super excited about sharing and being able to hear from a person who is a true trailblazer in many ways. The first openly gay LGBTQ plus liaison for the Los Angeles Police Department, retired Sergeant 2 Lisa Phillips. And so I'm going to actually just have Lisa kind of give a quick background on who she is. And then we're going to kind of kick this off because we are going to record this so that people can see this. And I think one of the things I will say is that in terms of the LGBTQ plus and allied community in law enforcement, we don't have that much in terms of video, and we do have documentation because I went to the one archive at USC. There is different posters and documents that showcase the evolution of how out officers came on the job in LA, both for LAPD and LA sheriffs. And so, Lisa, if you could just kind of share a little bit about who you are. I mean, because I could, do that, but I would love to hear from you and who is Lisa Phillips? Just in terms of your background and how you like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jules. Yes. Hi, whoever's out there. I grew up in Maryland after being born in Japan during the end of the Korean War. And when my parents came back stateside, we settled in Maryland. So that's where I grew up, in Maryland. I never thought about being a police officer. After college, I was a bartender for 15 years, living in Washington, D.C., and went through a couple experiences, almost getting mugged and having to fight somebody off, trying to steal my Christmas presents and crazy stuff like that. But I think what really put me on a trajectory to be a police officer were two incidences. One, when I was 7 years old, I was riding my bicycle with a friend, and a van pulled up, snatched my little girlfriend off of her bike, threw her into the van, abducted her, and sped away. And I jumped back on my bike and chased after this van, just feeling like, oh my God, I have to save her. Obviously, I couldn't catch up to a motor vehicle on my little Schwinn, but I tried. And I never saw her again. And that incident planted a seed inside me that I didn't understand. I just knew my instinct was to protect. Then at 11 years old, a man moved into our neighborhood in Rockville, Maryland. And I had that instinct again that something is wrong with this man. He's, throwing the candy out during Halloween. He was you could just tell. So it made it my mission at 11 to try and figure him out. And when I did figure out the kind of person he was, a pedophile, even though we didn't know the name back then, I did my best to trap him and get evidence in my own little 11-year-old mind. When he figured out that I had figured him out, he came over to my home when my parents were out and tried to get into my house, threatening me. And I didn't let him in. My parents came back. They called the police. he was arrested after a lot of evidence that he left. And at 11, I went to court. I testified against him. He was convicted and sent to prison. Another seed was planted. So I believe, even though as I got older, it didn't really stick with me that this is my destiny, if you will, but at age 29, when I was bartending and figuring out I wanted a career, LAPD was hiring and I heard a radio commercial. And that's when I started remembering, oh my God, this is who I've always been. And I didn't know it. And that's when I decided I'm going to go take the test and see what happens. I had been out to my parents since I was 18 years old. I was 29. And so I thought, well, I'll never get hired because I'm gay. I'm openly gay. But I thought, I'm gonna test the system here. And when I got the acceptance letter, I was like, I can't believe it. They're gonna hire me. So that's when I thought, all right, I've got a little mission. Get through the academy, get a couple years on the job, and then dig in and start trying to change the atmosphere on the department for gay people.
What year was that roughly, like in terms of when you applied and when you were accepted?
It was 1989.
Okay, wow.
It was the beginning of 1989, and I was in the May 89 class.
Wow.
The 89, yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
We're done.
So interestingly enough, like within the LAPD, right around that time period, then there was an LAPD officer, Mitch Groberson, who had come out on the job. And Keith, you had there was a parallel story within the sheriff's department that occurred. And so I know that it was roughly when the first law enforcement officers, at least in the LA area, were actually felt compelled or were able to actually say that, hey, I'm a part of this community. And Keith, can you speak a little bit about on the sheriff's side, what was happening around that time?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, I'm Keith Ho. I'm, as Jules said, I'm the vice president of LACOPS and I'm a sergeant with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And that part of the history of the Sheriff's Department, actually, the deputy was outed by someone, another actually during a traffic stop in West Hollywood, and the deputy went to help the traffic stop, and at the time the person being stopped was being arrested, and during the process he recognized the deputy from one of the bars, and literally so he was outed in that incident. And ever since then, he was a really good deputy, respected, a field training officer. But because of that, because of his sexual orientation, really tarnished his reputation. And subsequently, you know, he was denied promotion and being discriminated against. So it was really dark days for being someone out on the department or in law enforcement profession, and which subsequently led to lawsuits, and I'm sure that also happened with LAPD. And really that lawsuit led to change. So I think fast forward, that was late 80s and to early 90s, that's when our department, the county, and the city started to have basically the non-discrimination policy, where sexual orientation being encompassed part of the protected group. So at the workplace, for workplace harassment to any retaliatory actions against the employee, or the employee feels that being harassed, that person has all the righteous way to file a complaint and get help. So those two incidents, city and the county, led to the change and start what to where we are today. We came a long way, certainly.
And so that's where kind of goes into the next question specifically for Lisa. And Keith, if you can ask the next question regarding, it's related to what we've talked about.
The time when you came on the department to LAPD, and the climate was not friendly for someone who's out on a job, and actually, really, this topic came so close to my heart is because I spent a lot of time before myself joining the sheriff's department is researching this topic. What is it like for someone being out on the job? What was your experience? How was it like?
Well, I came out, when I took the written test, there were questions in our written test that grouped bestiality, necrophilia, and gay people into the same group.
Oh, wow.
So when I got to that part on the written psychological test, I said, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. I came out in 1977. And when I got to that part, I thought to myself, I'm not going to lie. The question was, are you attracted to someone of your same gender?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hell yes, I am. And I've been out, quite a while. I'm not going to lie. So I said, yeah. And I thought, they're never going to hire me now. If they have this question, they're never going to hire me. But when I got the acceptance letter and went into the academy, I was so busy, trying to get through the academy. It was, brutal, you all know. But I never hid who I was. But at that time, my partners, we didn't talk a lot of personal stuff. I was new, I was young on the job. It was all about tactics and learning. But my experience really came in 1992 during the riot. And that's when I came out to my partner, Dan Nee. We were in the middle of the riots. It was the first day, the first hours. And we were surrounded by 200 people attacking us, rocks and bottles and bricks and whatever. And we both decided, okay, we may or may not make it out of here. One of us may, one of us might not. So we decided at the end of this big call that we went on with the rocks and bottles, we got to the staging center, the bus depot, and we were looking over the city through the chain link fence, and we said, we need to exchange each other's loved ones' numbers, just in case. So that's when I officially came out to my partner. But then when we were recognized for bravery, I feel funny saying it, but we were recognized and given the Medal of Valor.
And we will touch on that real quick, because I want to say so kind of going back a little bit. So from 89 to 92, were you not that out, or you were out when you came in, but the first partner you ever came out to was Officer Nee?
Yes.
Okay.
And at that time, there was no protection policy of any kind. There was not even a sexual harassment policy. There was nothing. And I was smart enough to know, okay, I'm going to be myself, but I'm not going to be stupid about it. I'm going to, if things arise that are inequality or sexual harassment, then I had no qualms about stepping in. But that never arose with me or anybody that I worked with. And it was never talked on the department. So all I knew from the department was this ridiculous question on the psychological test,
Okay.
but I never saw any expression of bigotry or homophobia or anything. So I laid low until that night on the riots.
Okay. So,
And I was never harassed. I was just another officer and one
okay.
of the very few women in the division. So
Do you recall the percentage of women on the job at LAP at that time?
I think it was 6%.
Okay. So I think so. The Marine Corps. So I'm a Marine veteran. So roughly 6% of the Marine Corps are women to this day. And so one of the things I will say was the city of LA had a non-discrimination policy that included sexual orientation and gender back in 1979. But previously, a lot of people didn't know about it, especially within the LAPD. It was kind of an unofficial don't ask, don't tell policy until the first openly gay folks on the job came out and they had to file a lawsuit. So the parallel is that Lambda Legal took on several cases within the LAPD and the sheriff's department and represented these openly gay officers to bring forward the fact that the departments are actually conflicting with the law that was already in place by the city and the state. And to give some context, because a lot of people don't know, because I, in terms of age and like I'm considered old on the job, and Keith and I both feel old on the job, like, but so the Los Angeles riots from 1992. So the context of that was, if you can kind of go into that first, because like I think a lot of the younger officers on the job now, they've had a couple of experiences with civil unrest, with 2020, with the George Floyd protests, and some of the rioting that happened in conjunction to that, as well as recently with the federal immigration raids and operations that started some protests at most of them peaceful, but then you have some outliers and agitators that are causing like destruction and looting. And so back in 1992, if you can kind of talk a little bit about like Rodney King and the resulting courts, like basically the officers that were involved in the Rodney King beating that was videotaped. It was one of the first examples of in mainstream media where people could visually see police interacting and like and what people consider like an example of like, here's police, this is a use of force, and I'm going to keep, I don't want to use charged language here because there's definitely very, and being Korean American, and I was in high school when I saw this happen, and so there's a different narrative that I saw as like a civilian and young about what that looked like. Can you kind of touch upon what prompted, what triggered the LA riots and the
Well,
mobilization of the department back in
yeah,
1992?
the very slow mobilization.
Yes.
I was working 77th Division, and Dan and I were footbeat officers on the Vermont corridor. And the very slow and ineffectual response by the LAPD in the first 6 hours told us, all of us patrol cops, we knew it was coming. We knew from the word on the street, from the citizens, that if those 4 officers and the sergeant were acquitted, that hell was going to break loose. It was going to just come apart. The community was dumbfounded. Dan and I were standing at a TV repair shop on our footbeat when the verdicts were read. And immediately we started getting surrounded by some citizens that were there that we had known for a couple of years. But the disbelief and anger was so palpable that we took off. That's when I knew, okay, we don't have enough officers. Day watch has already been sent home. We have midday watch and PM watch that is just starting to go to roll call. So we had maybe 10 cops out there at that moment when the verdicts were read. So we knew it was going to come undone. It didn't really get better for 6 or 7 hours, but the feeling in the community was not again, not another 60s riot, you know, the Watts riot.
Yes.
We're not going to stand for this again, and we're going to just take our frustration and anger out on each other and on the police and on anybody that didn't live in the area. So it was a very scary and upsetting and saddening time to be a police officer, working patrol, watching the city, you know, being burned down, watching their own neighborhood, their community burned down.
So can we touch upon what happened with you and your partner? Like, so I had the privilege of reading your Medal of Valor uh, write-up, your narrative. And so can you kind of take us to what happened? How did you find yourself in that intersection? Was it happenstance? Like what happened there?
Well, what happened was, prior to Dan and I's incident, we were on patrol, and then we were all pulled back to all join up and reconnect and figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to respond. So everybody was ordered back to a staging area, anybody that was still working. As Dan and I finished up a missing persons call, we're driving back to the staging area, and by this time the radio is code 3 calls. Only code 3 calls are being broadcast. We heard a code 3 call come out of a woman being beaten to death in her car at Florence and Avenue 61, one block Florence, one block north on Normandy, Avenue 61. And we had already been given direct orders by our lieutenant. Nobody is to go back into that area. I don't care what kind of call it is. You are not allowed to go. And Dan and I were maybe 6 blocks south on Normandy. And we both just thought about it, and the call kept coming out. This woman's being attacked in her car. And Dan and I decided we're going to disobey orders. We don't care right now. This is why we were hired. This is our job. This is our duty. And we're going to go. We're going to try and find this woman. And whatever punishment we get, it'll be worth it. We didn't care. We were scared. The closer we got to the intersection, the more we were surrounded. There were no other police officers in the area. We didn't have an airship. It was just the 2 of us. And when the crowd realized it was just the 2 of us, that's when they surrounded us and just started rocks and bottles and bricks and whatever they could pick up. But we weaved our way through. I had a shotgun on my lap. You know, Dan was driving, you know, keep his head down as much as possible. We get through Florence and Normandy intersection. We get to the street. We go west. The crowd is following us. We're like enclosed in this circle of people. We finally see her car in the middle of the street. Everybody surrounded all of us. There was a man on the hood crashing it in with the windshield in with a 2x4. There was a guy leaning in the driver's seat. The woman was still buckled in. He had her like this and was just punching her. Dan and I raced up, got out of the car. I guarded Dan, he went up to the car, he scooped her up, cut her seatbelt, because she was still seatbelted in, scooped her up. I guarded him while he held her. We were running back to the car. When Dan gets hit in the back of the head with a brick or a bottle or something, he goes down in the street. The woman goes flying out of his arms. The crowd laughs. I'll never forget it the rest of my life. People laughing. And Dan wasn't moving. She wasn't moving. I'm like, okay, Phillips, this is it. You got to do it. So I got him up. He was okay, cut up. We picked her up, made it back to the car, threw her in the back seat. I jumped in the back seat with her because we didn't know if she was alive or dead. Or we pulled out. We were blocked in by somebody in a car that didn't want to let us leave. Then somehow, miraculously, Dan and this driver, their eyes met. And the guy pulled his car up and let us, and I say let us go. I mean, we would have had to run people over.
Yeah.
So that was the incident, and it took about 45 seconds, 60 seconds to do all that. It was crazy.
I'm sure it felt like forever.
It felt like forever.
Yeah. Wow. So you were able to take her to the local hospital?
Daniel Freeman in Inglewood. We got her to the hospital. She was still alive.
Okay.
And Dan got a little treatment for cuts because he fell in the street, and the street was covered with broken glass. But he was okay. His uniform wasn't. So, but we stayed with her long enough to get a family phone number. And we called, and we didn't say what really happened because it would have freaked them out.
Yeah.
We told them your mother has been in a car accident. This is where she is.
Okay.
Please come if you can. And then we went back to work for another 10 hours, I think. 12 hours. I don't know.
Wow. That's amazing. Like, that is truly a Medal of Valor. Yeah, whatever they wrote, it doesn't really speak to like that kind of just being in that moment. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, when they think about it, and this particular interview is like, yes, you're the first openly gay LGBTQ liaison for the Los Angeles Police Department, but really we're all like law enforcement professionals first when we came on the job, and that's why we came on the job. And so, but thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's something that really resonates with, a lot of folks, especially folks right now where, Keith and I, we were, recently mobilized with regard to the federal protests that happened. And so it's something where there's like a thread that connects us all, right, fundamentally. And so, wow, that's amazing. And I'm glad that the department recognized you and your partner for that work. And, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's difficult. It's almost like things like that, you remember it like yesterday, right? It's just very clear. And so.
There. And then just a follow-up, when you asked about coming out, that's when I came out, because I was the only woman that year to receive the Medal of Valor. So being the only woman, the reporters were all over me. And I thought, okay, this is the time. This is the time. Come out, let people hear, let them understand. I'm not only a woman, when there were still dinosaurs on the job, right? I handled myself. I was a strong woman, and I'm a strong gay woman. And there should be no doubt now that we belong, that all gay people that want to be cops belong.
Yeah.
And the minute that went out into the papers and everything, I got a tremendous response, positive response.
So that was, so
From
you
my
received,
a lot of my straight colleagues, more from my straight colleagues than my gay colleagues.
and so that was, you were awarded the Medal of Valor in 1993. And so the
Yeah.
parallel there is that was roughly when the conversation nationwide under then President Bill Clinton was about having open service in the military for the don't ask, don't tell policy. And so I like to kind of tie in that piece, but because the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department had operated under an unofficial don't ask, don't tell policy until basically the early 1990s. And we do have, thank you for sharing some of your archival magazines and stories that showcase that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is retain that for the LA Police Museum. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, now kind of shifting it where, we still want to dial back, you proudly received your Medal of Valor, and you took the opportunity as that during that snapshot you came out. But when you joined the police department, because we look back, right, in history, how the police always clash with the LGBTQ community, and you as an openly gay person, even at a young age, and decide to go into law enforcement, joining the LAPD. I mean, what was your perception overall with law enforcement and being someone gay joining law enforcement? What was it? How was that when you saw, well, I'm gay, let me go join the police? But the police is the one targeting LGBTQ population, the community, and
that's a really good question. I grew up right outside of DC. So I remember the first block party for LGBT, and Q even wasn't in the dialogue back then. Even though, of course, trans people were there, but there was no recognition. So I grew up in a liberal city. I was raised as a very open and liberal person. My parents raised me and taught me and learned me about gay people in the gay community. My uncle was gay, my mother's brother. My mother was a Broadway dancer. My father was in the Air Force, and grew up in the South, but hated the politics. So I was raised to be very comfortable. So when I came out to my parents in 77 at 18 years old, they had their own little coming out month. But after that, it was smooth sailing. They went to meet with gay bars. We went dancing together. I mean, I was so lucky, and I realized how fortunate I was. So when I decided to take the test, I wasn't really worried about it because I was so comfortable in myself. Thankfully, luckily, gratefully. But it was only when I saw that question, it made me even more determined to, if I get hired, one of my first goals is going to be to do whatever I can to help this department evolve and grow and understand and educate. So for me, the experience, I had a police sergeant, Montgomery County, Maryland police sergeant in my neighborhood. My first experience with cops was when I was making out in a car with my girlfriend. And he came to the window and tapped on the window. "What are you girls doing in there?" And we're like, well, we're making out. He's like, "Look, just go home." So it was a good experience. So I never felt afraid or intimidated about police officers. And I know I may be, depending on where you live, in the minority to feel that way, but where I grew up, it was, and that was in the 60s, but I had an African-American family in the neighborhood right after the civil rights movement. And it was a kind of a, before history could catch up, history happening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had different ethnicities. So.
Yeah. No, actually, that that incident that you described.
Yeah.
And at least the class I teach as the outreach with my department is one of the questions like, hey, deputies, what would you do when you pull up to a car and finding two same gender people making out, and then maybe they're juvies? How would you handle that? So literally that was one of the questions I usually throw out in my class. But I'm so glad to hear the positive vibe that you have gotten from law enforcement growing up, and that led you to apply to the department. And it's that one single question, that singular question, how it was phrased, and at that time, and still, right, homosexuality was still considered was a psychological disorder, not recently.
Exactly.
And it's not that long ago. And I'm really glad to see you stick with it. You stick with the plan. And
I stuck with the plan.
LAPD.
Even when I took the written test, it was not in my mind at all that I was gay. I didn't even think about it. I did because I was so comfortable in the way I was brought up and accepted. I only thought about it when I read that question.
Wow.
And that's when I said, okay, this is unacceptable.
You make a mission to.
I made it. Yeah. I did.
So this actually goes right into how did you end up becoming the first openly gay LGBTQ liaison for the department? So seeing from the timeline, so you basically, when you graduated from the academy, so Chief Daryl Gates was in place.
Yeah.
And so after what happened with the LA riots and the Christopher Commission and the different political things that came about, Chief Willie Williams came into place right around that time period. So can you kind of walk us through how did you get tapped for this job? Or I feel like you do a lot of things where it's like not necessarily getting tapped, but like saying, hey, we need to do this. But go, if you can share that.
Oh man, I pushed many envelopes. Well, after about a year after the riots, I felt like I need a little bit of a break from the streets, just a little bit, get my feet back under me, just take a breather, because it was so intense. Recruitment was hiring, and the lieutenant that was running recruitment, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, but we had met before, and we got along. We had met on some call or something. So I decided I'm going to apply to be a recruitment officer. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm going to try and get us to start recruiting in the gay community, like a lot of recruiting. And when I did my interview with this lieutenant, I told him exactly what my goal was, to be a great recruitment officer, but not just for the community at large, but for the gay and lesbian community. It was important. We need to keep evolving. We need to. And he listened to me and he said, I like it. Okay. I want to offer you this job. And it was a P2 spot. I'm like, I don't care. I've only been on 4 years. And I got the job. I got paired up with 2 really great officers who completely supported me. I told them my story. I told them who I was. And we recruited all over West Hollywood, LA, Vegas, gay events,
wow,
Palm Springs, Long Beach. It was amazing. That job as a recruitment officer got me to thinking that, okay, we have a women's coordinator. We have a the Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation ended big support for the African American officers. We have a Hispanic community coordinator. We do not have a gay and lesbian coordinator. So I made it my mission to meet with Chief Williams and a couple of commanders at the time, a captain, Sandy Joe MacArthur, who was an incredible straight ally of mine, and some council people who were openly gay. And I said, we need to lobby for a gay and lesbian coordinator, liaison. We need this now. There's a huge gay community in the LA area. And after many meetings with the chief and Sandy Joe and some other some people in high command that were dead set against it. No way. We don't want it. We don't need it. It's ridiculous. But I kept pushing. We need it. We need to create a better environment for both of our communities so we can work together and make things better for everybody. And Chief Williams, being a minority, African American, he kind of perked up, and I think he related a little bit like, we're both in these communities that aren't necessarily accepted in certain areas. Chief Williams got a huge pushback when he was appointed. Huge pushback from the command of white officers. So we sort of connected. And that's how it came about. I lobbied for it with the help of straight allies and gay allies and some police allies. Not very many, but some. So that's how it was created. Just hard meetings, yelling, arguing, pushing my point, getting pushed back, pushing again. And the chief said, I think it's a good idea. We're going to create a position. So that's how it happened.
And thank you for that, because we've had a long line of LGBTQ liaisons in the LAPD since then. And I had the privilege of being in that role in 2016 to 2018. So thank you. And I know the Sheriff's Department also has a liaison role as well. And so Keith is, by the way, the current LA Sheriff's Department LGBTQ liaison.
And the goal, the ultimate goal is having that as a full-time position, because currently on our department it's not a full-time dedication to do that. And it is a full-time job, I have to say, seeing what LAPD is doing, and actually the men within my department that has just for this topic, whether it's internal training to revising policy, coordinating community events. There's a lot going on. And you know, as we all know it, other cops would think, oh, it's just a cushy office job. And I was like, oh no, it's not anything but cushy.
It's crazy.
Yes,
busy.
And it is. It's crazy busy. It's a lot going on. And also too, as we saw in sort of, it's a very interesting time now with not just LGBTQ out officers, but law enforcement with the community itself. It's since 2020, George Floyd, you know, there's like a rollback.
Yeah.
Many even cops on the job. In my department, I see pretty much, hey, yes, I'm gay. If you ask me, I won't deny it, but I'm not going to put my face out there because we're facing backlash for this from the community. It's like, oh, why, you know, you're like treated as almost a traitor, being a cop and being part of being gay. What do you see now with this current trend with LGBTQ community and with being who is someone gay on the job now, what would you say?
Well, okay. Total transparency and honesty. When we marched a couple weeks ago in Hollywood, I felt overwhelmingly positive energy from the community. Overwhelming. There were a few people, of course, always.
Oh, yeah.
When I marched the first time, we had that pastor from Kansas. I can't remember his name, but he showed up to every gay pride parade. He stood at the end of the parade with signs. God made AIDS, and you're all going to hell, and it was so hostile. I saw none of that a couple weeks ago. So I think the gay community overall is mostly supportive, and they're educated enough in what's happening in the world, to understand that, yes, there are cops that go bad, or they get on the job and they shouldn't be on the job. But really, overall, we do a really good job of weeding that kind of person out. So my experience is the gay community with cultural change, like we were talking with movies and TV and gay characters, it's much more comfortable. I don't think they see us as the enemy anymore. Some do, of course. Some may always will, but because we were horrible in the 60s, in the 70s.
Yeah.
The Black Cat Bar.
Oh, yes.
Was raided all the time. And as the openly gay vice sergeant, I think the second one, I gave them their liquor permit, you know. So it's ever evolving, and so that's how I feel about it. That we're all still evolving.
No, definitely, it's still evolving, and actually seeing it's progressing better. And then, of course, it's because of work that all of us do collectively.
All of us,
that striving to improve the relationship, and
it's so important
to make the change. And change is going to come slowly, and we actually have felt a much better support. The COVID kind of Pride didn't happen, and then when it came back in about 2022, and that was the first year I really, when I marched in the West Hollywood Pride, that's when I felt like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
It's always supporting from the community, and then that year we saw so many really with that no cop at Pride type of rhetoric that we heard.
Yeah.
And
I mean, all those shootings just destroyed so much.
But then to this year, what we saw in Hollywood, and we always get that support. We love the community, and we are part of the community, and really seeing how it's improving. It really give us it is acknowledgement of our work, that what we have done, and to see bringing the community back, and they open their arms and welcoming us back into part of the event.
Yeah, back in the. And we have to keep that momentum going.
Yes.
We've got it back again now, a little bit.
Yep.
Even more than a little bit, I think.
Yes, and we need to continue this work, and it does not stop. Yeah.
No, it's nonstop.
Yes. And so just some background. So Lisa was able to march in both. So there's actually quite a few Pride events now compared to back in the day. And so there's a West Hollywood Pride parade as well as the LA Pride parade. So West Hollywood's still in West Hollywood, and LA Pride is now in Hollywood. And so Lisa was able to march with us on both events this in 2025. And 2025 has been quite a year, and so there's been many challenges given different executive orders and different things, everything from the fires, executive orders, what's happening with trans service in the military. And so there was a conversation recently. So Keith and I and a group of our LACOPS members were able to go to a recent conference. And one of the questions that came up, and this is related to what I wanted to ask you, was, it almost feels like we're starting to lose a lot of the progress that we made in the past. And so the question that I have for you is, what would you tell, especially having been there from the beginnings of many of the things that we're seeing today in terms of progress, what would you say to a young person in the community or an ally in terms of what you would encourage them to, what would you say to them right now, given the environment that we are in?
I would have a really honest, heartfelt conversation with them about the history of the gay community, the LGBTQ community, the history of the police department, how it was in the 60s, how it's evolved from there to 2025. I would encourage them to do some reading and figure out if this is something you're drawn to and you might want to be a cop. Know your history. Figure out what you want to do about it. Do you want to participate and continue building that bridge, or do you want to stand on the sidelines? Either one is fine, but if you feel like you want to jump in and do something, there are a lot of departments now in the country. Well, maybe not a lot, but there are enough departments in the country where you can safely and legally, without harassment, in a department level, come onto a department and do good deeds for not only the entire community, but your own community, your own, gay community. And don't be afraid to do it, because the more diverse we become, the stronger we become. That's what I would tell them. We have to all support each other and help each other up. Stop doing this pushing back, and more about joining in and helping one another.
Yeah.
And be brave. Be brave. It feels good to be brave.
I love that. That's awesome. I think we're actually getting close to the end of our time, but I kind of wanted to open up the floor for any additional questions. Keith, Mario, Steve, and the folks that are here, if you have any questions specifically for Lisa, because I think we could talk for much longer, because there's so much history. And Lisa was a longtime assistant watch commander at Northeast Division. There's something very meta about a openly gay vice sergeant helping the Black Cat Tavern get their ABC license. So for those who aren't aware, the Black Cat Tavern was a gay bar back in the 1960s, and the LAPD Vice raided that bar back in 66, and during New Year, so 66, 67, 2 years prior to the Stonewall riots, and arrested people out of there. And it actually prompted the first massive anti-police, police brutality demonstrations in the country, right? So it doesn't necessarily get as much play as Stonewall, but it was significant. The same thing with Cooper's Donuts. And there's so many different instances where there's been friction between law enforcement and the LGBTQ plus community. So yeah, but definitely, yeah, I wanted to open the floor for any questions that people have. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. Keith, you look like you have a question.
Well, actually, I do want to, like I said before, and I can attest to that in my department. Lately, it's been the only gay face out there for the department, and I know there are many more. The culture is, hey, leave me alone. I'm comfortable. I'm not going to deny if you ask me, I am, but I'm my little happy world. What would you say to them and encourage them to say, hey, join forces? And what would you say to them that are fellow LGBTQ officers, deputies who are currently on the department?
Well, I would say, look, you don't enjoy where you are now without the people that fought for you to be where you are now, feeling safe and cozy and comfortable. If we don't continue to do that, meaning if you now, your generation, just sits back in your sofa and says, thank you very much for all the hard work you did, and then you do nothing, it's very tenuous. It's always very tenuous, individual rights. Look at Roe v. Wade. We thought it would never get overturned, right? Boom, now they're throwing doctors in jail and women in jail. So I would say, look at your history again. Understand how you got to be in your happy place right now. Because you didn't just get there with a rainbow and a kiss and a unicorn. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of grinding and pushing back and arguing and fighting for yourself to be able to be here now.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because if we don't remember our history, we're doomed.
Yeah.
We've got to respect the history of any culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you forget about it, things can change. A tidal wave can come in and just take you out.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell them.
Thank you.
Just like I said it, like, don't screw around. This is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take advantage.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Keep working.
Those are insightful words, and I really want to see, that stronger base and representation and visibility, and that's all we talk about. And even forming the affinity group, it is part of it is bring visibility and education and be visible and say, hey, it's not status quo, and because it is still a very continuous topic for us. Yeah.
We need the bigger platform we build, the bigger foundation, the stronger we are as a community. Mm-hmm. So more cops that like step up and go, I'm gay. I'm sick of being timid about it. I am who I am. The more people that join, the stronger the building is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we got to do.
Yeah. No, I feel so fortunate having Lisa here share space in my house today.
Yes. I will say I'm jealous because I haven't been able to see Keith's house. But I do want to bring up a comment from Steve that says, thank you to all. And specifically, thank you, Lisa, for sharing your perspectives and insights here. And of course, for your courageous service. And so just wanted to share that from the comments. But yeah, I mean, I think we are very privileged to have you share your story. And we hope that you continue to share your story. I know that you are working on a book, and I'm looking forward to seeing that when it's ready. But yeah, I wanted to if anybody else had any questions before we close, because I do want Keith and Lisa to have a good little happy hour afterwards, and just to connect and have a little kiki, as they used to say. And but yeah, I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions, and close with Jose.
Hi, yes. More than a question, I have just a comment. I just thank you so much for coming on. It filled my heart with inspiration. And thanks for the reminder of the struggle, and appreciate your courage. I'm a civilian employee of the Sheriff's Department, and I admire and grateful for first responders, and even more so for the LGBT first responders, because it just takes so much more to fight through, to push through, to provide the support, and just hearing the story of the courage that you demonstrated in saving this women. It's just the hard work that's being done. And I just want to, thank you so much for everything that you do and for everybody that serves in our as first responder and is LGBT, and definitely energizing to like keep pushing. I'm already like thinking, okay, how can we engage our folks a little more in the umbrella of LGBT within our community as first responders. So thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that was Jose, but
That was
I'll take
Jose.
the credit. I'll take the credit.
Okay.
But I do want to chime in as well, and to Biggie Pat, no worries.
Oh yeah, I know. But yeah, no, Jose has been doing a lot on the sheriff's department side, helping us out, and because he comes to it, the background from the psychological side and helping us, really connecting when our employees who internally needed help and guidance. And as a speed out Jose, I'm calling for help. And then he's also very passionate of the subject. And it's, I'm not alone, but I have Jose and other, but I just want to build a base, bigger representation for just sheriff's department alone. I always tell Jules, okay, I need to compete. I need to have more of my folks to join and be part of LACOPS and be the face of, hey, we exist. And
and we're getting there. And but yeah, so Mario, you wanted to. So Mario is a part of the LAPD, and he's one of my seasoned LGBTQ training cadre members. So Mario, you were gonna say something.
Oh, for sure. I do. You can hear me, correct? Good. So I do want to echo that comment that Jose had said. Your bravery is so inspirational. That vulnerability to say, hey, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to be doing my thing, which I think is best, as you said, which is going to be remembered for a while. Bravery is good, right? It's outstanding to hear that, to have that that idea in the back of your head to kind of push you forward. And I do agree with you that to know the history of the community is to know the community, right? And also to know yourself, right? We can't be driving on these dirt paths and not say, oh, why are they dirt paths, right? To now they're paved and with concrete curbs. It's like, how did this all come about? And for you to share your story is so inspirational. I love that bravery aspect.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. We all have to do it together.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, no, and I'm just still at awe because I told Lisa earlier. I said, I remember you when I was a new deputy, and I was at the West Hollywood Pride. She was waving the rainbow flag, and LGBTQ also has the Hummer. I mean, that's how I remember when I saw Lisa. That's where I know you from.
That was the first time we were in uniform. 3 of us.
Oh, yeah. We have gone a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when was the first time that uniform officers marched in LA Pride?
95.
95? Okay.
95.
Yeah, because it's hard for us to kind of gauge because and this is part of our oral history, right? Is like, what does it mean to be a part of this community? And it is important to know our history. And so, I wanted to thank you so much for sharing time, sharing space with us here. And just we look forward to being with you, in the near future. We're going to have different events. But I do want to give a big plug for our organization, LACOPS Pride. So you can actually find us online at lacopspride.org. And we're going to post this on our website as well as YouTube and our social media platforms. And any saved rounds for you, Lisa? You get to say the last word because you are the trailblazer for us. And so what are your last words before we depart tonight?
Well, I first want to say thank you so much. This has been so fun for me and good for me to get back out there and be more available. I had a rough few years because my mom died and during COVID, and so I'm now energized again. And that parade did it for me. It got me like, all right, I'm ready to jump back in and do whatever I can do. So thank you for inviting me. That turned the ship around, if you will. And I just want to say it's vitally important that we don't forget the past, like I said, but that we encourage and hold up the community and excite them to get re-involved in our future. Because right now in this country, it's sketchy. There are a lot of individual rights being threatened. And this is not the time to lay down and say, thank you, I'm comfortable. We need another resurgence of energy and determination and purpose. That's what I want to say. And I'm going to be a part of it. So let's do it.
All right.
Let's get out there.
Looking forward to spending more time with you, Lisa.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you so much. But with that, I wanted to wish everybody a safe and good evening. Be safe, be healthy. We will see you on the next one. And I'm going to give a quick plug to Mario and Mandy's podcast that we're going to be able to hopefully premiere. And we're looking forward to having Lisa as a part of that as well. And of course, Keith, Keith's my partner. You know, he's my work husband, basically. So with permission from my spouse, but yes. So, but have a good night, be safe, be healthy, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you so much.
Good
Thank you
night.
so much.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care.
Nice.